Philadelphia Eagles win it again, 40-29 over the New Orleans Saints. Eagles get their first victory at home this season, and the Eagles move to 5-6. And don't look now; they're involved in a playoff race, right? As we look at the NFC standings, let's go right to the NFC standings at this point. Updated NFC standings at this point. Let's go right to them. At this point in time, the Philadelphia Eagles, in terms of the standings at this point, they're slowly moving on up the standings in the NFC. If the playoffs were to start today, they would be on the outside looking in, but they're half a game behind the Minnesota Vikings for the sixth spot, and now half a game behind the Saints for the seventh spot. So they are right there in the mix in terms of the playoff race. The Philadelphia Eagles, another impressive performance today, and this team getting it done on the ground. I mean, 50 carries today, 242 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns, those 3 touchdowns by Jalen Hurts. And the Philadelphia Eagles, again, running the ball at an elite level. This is the second game in a row with over 200 yards rushing, and the third time in 4 games that they rushed for over 200 yards. So the Eagles are running the ball at an elite level, and this is the New Orleans Saints defense that was number 1 against the rush. This Saints defense was number 1 against the rush. So this is not a bad defense that this team that the Eagles put up 40 points against. This is not a bad defense that the Eagles ran for 242 yards against. I mean, it's the first time the Saints have given up over 30 points this season. So the Saints have a very good defense, and the Eagles were able to run the ball effectively. Again, I mean, it's clear that Nick Sirianni has learned from what he was doing early on in the season. Early on in the season, it was run. And now at this point, it was pass. And now at this point, it's run. And now this Eagles offense, and this Eagles defense played well today, but this Eagles offense is playing much, much better. And now, hey, it makes everything look better. Makes Jalen Hurts look better. It makes Nick Sirianni look better. And just look at it. So earlier in the season, right, first 6 games, this team was running the ball 22 times for 114 yards, right? That's per game, first 6 games. And then now the last 4, right, coming into this one, the last 4, it was 39 carries per game at 190 yards, and then it had the 7 touchdowns. So this team has figured it out. Nick Sirianni has figured it out on the fly. He's figured out what he needs to do to make this team and make this offense go and to keep this team into games. And, them running the ball, I mean, you look at the last 4 games. Look at the last 4 games the Eagles have had, right? They had the Chargers, a game that they definitely could have won, but they beat the Broncos, over 200 yards rushing. They lost to the Chargers 27-24, over 175 yards, 176 yards to be exact, against the Chargers. And he had the Lions game where they blew the Lions out, but they had over 200 yards rushing. So clearly, at the beginning of the year, this should have been the game plan. Running the football, right? That should have been the game plan for the Eagles, running the football at a high level and just running the ball because you have the personnel. You got the guys that can do it. You have the quarterback that can do it. You obviously have the running backs that can do it. Miles Sanders is back. He had a fumble today, but Miles Sanders is a big-time back with big-time ability who is a home run hitter. And then you got Jordan Howard who's chipped in, right? He's playing some big-time football. He did leave with a knee injury. Hopefully that's not too serious, but he gashed the Saints today. So the key is the Eagles have decided to commit to the running game. They have decided and said to themselves, well, this is our best chance, our best opportunity to win football games. And clearly that's what they're doing, and that's what they have done over the past few weeks. Also, going back to this defense, right? You look at this Eagles defense and what they've done throughout the course of the season. They have played well against the average quarterbacks. Against average quarterbacks, the Eagles have done well on the defensive side of the football. obviously, when you start playing guys like the Bradys and the Mahomes and things of that nature, you struggle. And they did struggle against very good quarterbacks. Look at it, right? Matt Ryan, first week one. I mean, Matt Ryan's still an okay quarterback at this point, but he's not a great quarterback. But ultimately, the defense played well. San Francisco, Jimmy G, they lost that game, but they played well. But then you start looking at Dak Prescott. They gave up 41 points to him. Patrick Mahomes, you gave up 42 points to him. Tom Brady, who did well against them, 28 points. And then Derek Carr, who's solid. And Derek Carr is having a decent year. You know, they didn't do too well against him. And then Justin Herbert put up some big-time numbers as well. But against average quarterbacks, you look at it, right? Carolina, Sam Darnold, they won that one. Defense played well. Jared Goff, Detroit, defense played well. Teddy Bridgewater, Denver, defense played well. And then Travis Simeon today, defense played well. Well, look at the rest of the schedule. Look at the rest of the schedule. You got a lot of average in terms of quarterback position the rest of the schedule. Daniel Jones, right, for the New York Giants, who they face next week in a big football game in terms of the playoffs. The New York Jets, we don't know if it's going to be the rookie Wilson. We don't know if it's going to be Joe Flacco. We don't know if it's going to be Mike White. But the Jets, very average, right, at the quarterback position. Taylor Heineke in the Washington football team, very average at the quarterback position. So, you know, the next few games, the Eagles are going to play a lot of average in terms of the quarterback position. So this is an opportunity, hey, for maybe this team to make a decent run. And defensively, again, they're playing well. And they played well defensively against average quarterbacks. They played well defensively against, you know, quarterbacks who are not the greatest. Obviously, when you put a Brady out there, when you put a Mahomes out there, all right, it's kind of understandable to a degree for those guys that put up the numbers because that's what those guys do. They put up numbers. Dak Prescott as well. They put up numbers. I mean, that's what those guys do. So maybe it's not an awful thing, but in those games, the defense really didn't even show up in those games, right? They didn't even show up in those games where they played those big-time quarterbacks. But it's not a sin to allow Patrick Mahomes to put up big-time numbers. It's not a sin to allow Dak Prescott to put up big-time numbers. That's not a sin. I guess the sin is where you just can't stop these guys at all. You just let them go up and down the field with little to no resistance, right? But now, again, an average quarterback in Trevor Simeon, and look how the defense looked today. I mean, TJ Edwards made a bunch of plays for the Eagles today, right? Had that big interception, had a fumble recovery, had a tip there on the two-point conversion. TJ Edwards came up big for the Philadelphia Eagles today, and he put up some, you know, he made some big-time plays for this defense. And then big play Slay, Darius Slay, second game in a row with a touchdown. Big play Slay. Big play Slay. You know, he's got a bunch of money from the Philadelphia Eagles, but, you know, he's been okay, been average at times, but big play Slay made a big play, 20-7 at that point. Big play Slay with the pick six made it 27-7 going into halftime. And at that point, the Eagles had complete control of this football game. I know New Orleans made it kind of close, not close, but they made it interesting in the fourth quarter. But then Jalen Hurts made a big-time run, put this game on ice, and the Eagles moved to 5-6. Right? Earlier in the season, again, we were ripping Nick Sirianni, and rightfully so. I mean, Nick Sirianni deserved to be ripped. He deserved to be ripped for the way he was handling the offensive side of the ball. But again, now you look at this Eagles team and their ability to run the football. They're making a commitment to running the football, and they're doing it at a very high level. This Saints team, number one against the run. So you're doing something when you're able to run the ball for over 200 yards against the New Orleans Saints, and they're number one against the run. 50 carries today, 242 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. You're going to win a lot of football games if you're running the ball the way the Eagles are running the football right now. You're going to win a lot of football games, right? Before this one, the last 4 games, an average of 39 carries, an average of 190 yards, and 7 rushing touchdowns. So that leads the league. over the last 4 games in terms of that yardage, 190 yards. So when you're running the ball at that level, you're going to win a lot of football games. And if you're not winning, you're going to at least be in a lot of football games. Like, again, over these past few weeks, the Eagles have won 3 out of their last 4, and their only loss was to the Chargers in a game that they were in and had the game tied late. And ultimately, Justin Herbert drove a long drive. He kicked the Chargers kicked the field goal, and ultimately they won that game. But again, they were in that game. So when you run the ball the way the Eagles are running the football, you're going to be in a lot of football games. You're going to give yourself a big chance and a big opportunity to win games. And that's what the Eagles are doing right now. They're running the football with Howard, with Sanders, with Boston Scott, and they're winning football games. It's translating to wins. And running the football is translating to wins. Also, it does help that the schedule has lightened up a little bit for this Eagles football team. Look at the schedule. Look at the schedule early, and then look at the schedule now. You play teams like San Francisco, solid team, not a great team, but a solid team, 5-5. But you play Dallas, who's a very good football team. Kansas City's been up and down this year, but they're still Kansas City, right? Tampa Bay, they're the Super Bowl champions. Las Vegas and Raiders are solid. But after that, right, after you got through the first 7 games, the schedule has lightened up. And now, with the schedule lightened up, the Eagles have won 3 or 4. Now, I'm not saying maybe they have turned the corner. To a degree, they have. But at the same time, this could be a byproduct of the schedule. The schedule just lightening up for this team. But they're taking advantage of it. And, Jalen Hurts, as a quarterback who's a work in progress, he wasn't stellar today, but he did his job. He did the job today, right? He didn't turn the football over, which is huge with a young quarterback. But he made plays with his legs, made obviously 3 touchdowns on the ground, made plays with his legs, and did his thing in terms of that. And he just made the necessary throws. He had that nice throw to Devontae Smith earlier in the game. He had Dallas Goedert who just got paid this weekend. Dallas Goedert got money, got a big-time contract with the Philadelphia Eagles. So you look at it, Jalen Hurts did his job today. And he's doing his job and has done his job over the past few weeks. He's a work in progress. He's a young quarterback. And, there's going to be times where it's great, and there's going to be times where it's awful. That's just the way young quarterbacks, that's what they do. They have their moments, and those moments sometimes are good, and sometimes those moments are bad, but they have their moments. And Jalen Hurts has had his moments where it's good, and has had his moments when it's been not so good. But ultimately, he has this team at 5-6. Nick Sirianni, after a slow start in terms of his adjustments, in terms of schemes and everything, has his team at 5-6. The Eagles are 5-6 and are in striking distance for the playoffs. They are in striking distance for the playoffs. They're right there. They are right there. And the way the schedule is at this point in time, there's a moment, there's a chance, there's an opportunity. Now, there's other teams in the NFC East that can say the same thing. Washington can say the same thing. Got 2 games against Philadelphia. The New York Giants can say the same thing. They also got 2 games against Philadelphia. So these teams can say the same exact thing, right? This is our moment, our time to make that run. But let's look at the Saints, right? Trevor Siemian, not that great, but just look at their schedule the rest of the way. You look at the Saints, their schedule the rest of the way. I mean, next week at home against Buffalo. Buffalo just lost today to the Indianapolis Colts, so that's going to be a tough one. Buffalo's going to be smart coming off that loss, so that's going to be a tough that's going to be a tough game for the Saints. Dallas is going to be a tough game for the Saints. At New York, the Jets, I mean, that's very winnable, clearly. But then you got Tampa Bay, again, at Tampa Bay. That's going to be a tough game for the Saints. So in terms of the schedule, it's going to be tough for the Saints going forward. These next 4 weeks, 3 out of their next 4 games are against teams, Buffalo, Dallas, and Tampa Bay, who some believe could be are Super Bowl contenders. So 3 out of the Saints' next 4 games are against Super Bowl contending teams. So New Orleans right now at 5-5, it doesn't get easier for them, and it actually could get worse as they go forward. So that's a team in terms of the Saints. Well, hey, that's a team you might, if you're the Eagles, you look at them at this point and say, well, they're going to at least, these next 4 games, they're at least going to go 2-2, right? They're probably going to at least go 2-2. That's at best. That's at best. But they could lose 3 out of the next 4 games. And at that point, they'll be what, 6-8? So 3 out of the next 4, you'll be 6-8. And, obviously you're plummeting down the standings. So again, the Saints are a team that schedule-wise, it's not looking good for them. And the Eagles, again, schedule-wise, it's looking very good for them. And they have a chance. They have a legitimate chance. It's crazy. The way the season started off for the Philadelphia Eagles, I don't think anybody would have ever imagined that the Eagles would have had a shot to make the playoffs. Now, I will say this, with 7 teams, it does make it a little easier to make the playoffs this year. It does. With 7 teams, it makes it easier to make the playoffs. So the Eagles are right there. Minnesota's a team that's playing decent football, beat the Chargers last week, beat the Packers today. So they're going to clearly be there. But let's look at Minnesota's schedule. Let's look at the next few games for the Minnesota Vikings in terms of their schedule, right? At San Francisco, that's a game. San Francisco is another team right in the mix for the playoffs. That's going to be a tough one for Minnesota. At San Francisco, at Detroit, that's a game you should win, right? Pittsburgh at home. Pittsburgh, little been up and down, but playing decent of late. At Chicago, in Week 15, Chicago, and young quarterback, decent defense. I mean, but that's not a slam dunk in that situation. Then you got the Rams at the Packers, and then you end with the Bears. Schedule not awful, but schedule not easy either, right? At San Francisco could be a loss. Pittsburgh could be a loss. Los Angeles and Green Bay could be a loss, right? So they got 2, so you look at Minnesota's schedule, and it's not, again, a slam dunk situation for them. It's not, right? So I'm just looking at some of the teams that are ahead of the Eagles, and I'm saying to myself, well, the Eagles, in terms of schedule, the schedule is on their side. The schedule favors the Eagles. It does, right? New York Giants, that's winnable. New York Jets, that's winnable. There's 5 out of their 6 games are very winnable for the Eagles, right? And then you finish the season against Dallas. But I said before, at that point, the Dallas Cowboys could have complete control of the NFC East, probably will. They have complete control now, and they probably will, when it's all said and done, be in complete control of the division. Only thing you'd have to worry about the Cowboys is them, fighting for some type of seeding. You got to worry about that point. But if you look at it, Dallas will definitely be in position where there's a possibility that they're resting starters at that point. There's a possibility that Dak Prescott's not playing at that point. So the schedule is on the side of the Philadelphia Eagles. They have a moment, a chance, and an opportunity to get to the playoffs. Unbelievable. Who would have thought when this team was 2-5 that this was possible? Who would have thought, right? And again, it's possible, but again, this team has flaws. The Eagles have a lot of flaws. Defensively, they have flaws. I mean, Jalen Hurts, even though he had 3 rushing touchdowns, first Eagles quarterback in the history of the franchise to have 3 rushing touchdowns, which is kind of impressive when you consider some of the quarterbacks that have, been quarterback for the Eagles, turn to Michael Vick, turn to Donovan McNabb, turn to Randall Cunningham. These were all mobile quarterbacks, all very good runners. So it is kind of impressive that Jalen Hurts has done something that Donovan McNabb hasn't done, that Randall Cunningham hasn't done, and that Michael Vick hasn't done, right? And you're talking about, again, 3 of the best running quarterbacks in the history of the game. So that is an impressive situation when it comes to Jalen Hurts. But again, in terms of him and the way he played today, solid, just okay, good enough. He got the job done. That's it. It's just one of those games, especially when you run the ball 50 times, right? You don't necessarily need your quarterback to do a lot of things when you're running the ball 50 times and you're running for 242 yards. You don't necessarily need your quarterback to do a lot, but you just need him to make the necessary throws and make the necessary plays, and he did that today. He did his job today. Great? No. Good enough? Definitely. Job well done for Jalen Hurts. and the Philadelphia Eagles now 5-6. The Philadelphia Eagles, big time victory over the New Orleans Saints, 40-29. I'm excited from this standpoint. Look, I think, I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again. You look at it, all you want to be when it comes to this football team is being in the mix. And they are in the mix, right, for a playoff spot. You're in the mix for a playoff spot. You're in position to possibly make the playoffs. You can't ask for anything more than that with this team. This is a young football team, right? This is a team that's growing. This is a team that, obviously has a lot of flaws. This is a team that, needs to do some more things on the defensive side of football. I think offensively, with Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position, I'm still not sold completely on him as the franchise quarterback, but offensively, I think it's okay offensively. Defensively is where I have concerns when it comes to this football team. And again, this is a team that has a lot of draft capital going forward, an opportunity to have 3 first-round picks, including a high pick. The Dolphins pick could be very high. And also, their pick, we'll see where that goes, could be high as well. But this team, the future, if they draft well over the next few years, and let's just say Jalen Hurts is their guy, you're in a good spot. The offensive line is solid. You got Dickerson, who's playing decent football, the rookie. You got Mailata, who's locked up. You still got Lane Johnson there. And then Andre Dillard, when he came in and played some snaps, he wasn't bad either. So offensive line looks like it's good. You still have to improve. And I look at the wide receivers. Devontae Smith looks like the real deal. Quez Watkins is solid. Jalen Reagor still hasn't made his mark as a wide receiver in the NFL. I'm not saying it's all his fault, but he hasn't made his mark. But so you still have to figure that part out. But Dallas Goedert looks like he has the goods. And Miles Sanders is a guy, decent running back. And we'll see what happens with him going forward. But the Eagles are not in a bad spot. And ideally, again, if you walk out of this season, you could say, well, coming into this season, you had some questions about the quarterback, Jalen Hurts. You had some questions about other parts. You had questions about, who's going to be your left tackle for years to come, right? Because you drafted Andre Dillard to do that. But Dillard has been injured, and Jordan Mailata has come in and proven that he can do that for you. And you signed him up. You locked him down. So he's signed up, signed, sealed, and delivered for the next few years. So if you walk out of the 21 season, and you say you got your quarterback of the future, and you say you got your left tackle of the future, well, you're in decent shape. Obviously, you still have to improve the defensive side of the football. Darius Slay has played well over the past few weeks, made plays, big play Slay. He came in, we called him Big Play Slay, and Big Play Slay has made big plays. He's done just exactly what his name is, right? He did leave with a head injury. Hopefully that's not something that lingers. Hopefully it's a situation where he's back and okay going forward. But again, the first half was what they did. They dominated the first half, 27 points in the first half, 27-20 going into the break. Second half, not so great. Defensively, they let up some points. Offensively, they slowed down a little bit. A few 3-and-outs there, and not necessarily moving the football. But again, when it was time for the offense to make a play, they were able to make a play on that final drive, which ultimately put this game to bed. The final drive, Jalen Hurts, made a couple throws there, did what he had to do on that final drive. Let's look at that final drive again. The game that put it away for the drive that put it away for the Eagles. Saints kicked the field goal, made it 40-22. Eagles get the ball back, right? And they ultimately, you got Hurts, who made a nice play to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. That's in terms of him doing anything on offense, that's a name that you haven't heard much. Obviously he's done some things on the special teams, but in terms of offense, you haven't heard much from J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. So he did his thing, made a nice play, 23 yards. And then ultimately, after that, the Eagles were able to move it down, kept going, kept getting it down, kept putting themselves in position, right, to get it done. Miles Sanders with a run here, Miles Sanders with a run there. Jalen Hurts gets a first down. Miles Sanders, 14-yard run there. And then ultimately, Saints throw another timeout. Boston Scott had a 1-yard run. And then ultimately you had the situation, Jalen Hurts, 24-yard run, put the game on ice, and the Eagles win it 40-22. Philadelphia moving to 5-6, and the Eagles now in position to possibly make. Here's the thing: they're in position to make the playoffs, but this is a playoff push. This is officially a playoff push, and they are in the mix for a playoff spot. It's official at this point. They got 7 games left, right? So if they can, put this together, 6 games left. If they can put this thing together and figure this thing out, and the New York Giants, again, a team that is the New York Giants, a team that is playing some okay football. Not, Giants aren't awful, but they're not great. And Daniel Jones is not great. Daniel Jones had some decent performance against the Eagles, actually. Last year he beat them in the Meadowlands at MetLife, and then the first game they played the Eagles, he tripped up on his own feet in that game. Remember that, but he had them in position to win that as well. But again, if the Eagles are a playoff team, these are the games you have to win because the schedule is on your side. The schedule is clearly on your side. We look at it again. The schedule is there for you, man. If you could just sub 500, sub 500, sub 500. The only team above 500 is the Dallas Cowboys. That's it. The only team above 500 left on the Eagles schedule is the Dallas Cowboys in Week 18, and that game may be for nothing for the Cowboys, right? So you could be in position where you're playing Dallas's second team players. So if the Eagles can find a way to keep winning, if the Eagles find a way to keep winning, they'll probably make the playoffs, right? They'll probably make the playoffs. The Eagles legitimately, right? I'm not saying they're going to do it, but I think 9 games is more than likely, but they could easily win 10 games. They could easily win 5 of these next 6 and win 10 games this year. Now, winning 9-10 games would be great for this team. Obviously, 10 games would be better than 9 games, but winning, 10-9 games this year for this team, right? That's a win. With the talent level that's on this roster, that is a win. So before we get out of here, let's be clear about something. The Philadelphia Eagles are involved in a playoff race, and we'll see now if Nicky Sirianni, if Jalen Hurts and this running game can keep this going. We'll see if the defense can continue to be solid going forward. Again, they've been very solid and very good against average quarterbacks, and that's all that's left on the schedule is average quarterbacks. So we'll see what happens going forward. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe, and we will be back here next week after the New York Giants game. So around 4:30, we'll be back here next week, and we'll hopefully be talking about another Eagles win, and hopefully we'll continue to talk about the Eagles' playoff push, their push to make the playoffs, hopefully. But for everybody here, it's time to get out of here. See you later. Take care. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Take care of yourself. We'll be back next week after the New York Giants game. Peace.